I'm BrentLeary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Playaz. We are sheltering just like everybody else.
And we are, looks like, going to be +2.
We'll get into that in a moment.
I'm just like getting everybody revved up for all this really cool stuff we're going to do.
Yeah, we've got like a full show. It's actually starting to look like a show.
That's actually a little bit frightening. So I'm also announcing that this will be my last show.
Yes,
real show.
It's time to step away.
That's right. The day this looks resembles a show, or that we have a corporate brand, and you know who's saying that. It's the day that it's time for us to step away.
We'll definitely be getting into that corporate brand thing because of something that came up during yesterday's happy hour. Why don't you tell folks a little bit about what happened yesterday?
We allowed to say that on the air. So
we had another good one though.
You know what? All three of them have been outstanding, and it always has this very eclectic mix of people who show up and from all over the globe. Like we had a gentleman who runs IBM CRM for telcos from Egypt, right? So, and he's actually got a much bigger role coming up. I'm going to leave out names, but I don't really want to, but I will. Then we had. This one's going to be, I'm going to disguise completely. We had the guy who runs Sales Cloud and Service Cloud for Salesforce on the show, or on the happy hour. We had 3 Salesforce people. We had our former, again, I won't mention his name, our former player in residence. You know, there could be one of many.
Yeah, only one, because we only had one.
Right. And we had the VP of Business Development for Salesforce.org. That's the Salesforce contingent alone. We had the head of Analyst Relations for Freshworks. I mean, we had just this astounding variety of really interesting people on the happy hour. And you know, most of the happy hours, we're kind of introducing ourselves, and then Brent and I are trying to make sure that there are no signs of Patriot fans in there. We failed miserably.
We're not doing a really good job of that at all. It's almost like we're getting deluged with them.
I know. We had 4 yesterday, so that shows what a horrible job we're doing. Although what we will do, for those of you who hate the Patriots, is we will out the names of all the Patriots fans to you, right? We'll send you emails with their names, and then after that, we're not responsible for your actions. Not a bit.
Are we going to have to do our own disclosure, similar to what we do with Esteban, since we don't want to be held responsible for any of that?
Well, from now on, in the happy hour, we'll have that and a safe harbor statement.
All right. So once again, every Wednesday from 3:30, I think we're going to start calling it the Happy 90.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely longer than an hour at this point.
Yeah, they go about an hour and a half. 3:30 p.m. Eastern time to 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. We're completely booked up for all of April, first week in May. After that, we have some available, but we have people who are booking all the way into middle of July now. So again, we'll put the URL on the site after once this is over, and you're welcome to register and sign up. And I would highly advise you do, because hottest ticket in town, man.
Yeah, it's real hot. Seriously. All right, let me do a plug for our tomorrow. We're doing CRM Playaz Sports Edition. Excuse the intrusion.
Nailed it this week first.
And I just got to say, this is a little tease here. I'm going to pop up this.
Oh.
All right. So just give them a little tease of what this kind of is, because we're going to go into it in detail with our guest tomorrow.
Well, let's just say this, and I'm not going to say much more. Our guest tomorrow is a highly placed executive in the Norwegian professional football league. That's not the name of it, but that's what it is. And all I will otherwise say, this is a press conference. I'm not saying any more. And you just figure out the rest from there. But you'll hear a lot more from our guest tomorrow. We've had him on the Playaz before. He's one of the funniest people you'll ever meet. He's one of the most astute people you'll ever meet. And if I remember correctly, I don't think you do, Brent, right? He did a magic trick. on our last one.
He must have just did a magic trick on me and just said, make whatever's in your mind disappear. Because I have no clue as to what that was.
I'll tell you what, if he's as magical as we think he is, he will also hopefully do a magic trick for us tomorrow, in addition to telling us what in the hell that thing was.
All right, so that's tomorrow at 3:00 Eastern for CRM Playaz Sports. Excuse the intrusion. Not to be, confused with anything else.
No, and certainly has no relationship with the university or skin color.
Yeah, none of that.
None of that.
All right. So you kind of brought it up a little earlier. You didn't say any names.
I didn't even say what it was. Actually, I just said plus.
Yeah. But we did institute a player in residence program. We had one person go through it already. It was supposed to be a full year long, but he was so good he finished in 6 months and then took a job at Salesforce as their global innovation evangelist. So that's
kind of the idea, though.
Yeah.
Our idea is to graduate people to great jobs, tremendous amounts of income, and happy lives.
Yeah, we did that. So we're 1 for 1. We should actually close it down, but we're not. We're actually doubling down. That was actually kind of good.
Whoa!
Didn't think about that.
No, but you know what? Let's. I'll write it down so we use it again. Now that we're a show, we have to keep the record of our good lines.
Yeah, there it is. That won't take much.
No.
All right. So
far, I got 80 blank pages.
So we are proud to say that we have doubled the entry into the CRM Playaz Player in Residency program. And we have with us the next two. So let me introduce Nicole France. I almost said Nicole.
Everyone knows Nicole.
Yeah. Like everybody loves Raymond. And joining Nicole in the next class of the Player in Residency program is Jamie Anderson.
Hey.
Everyone knows Jamie. Everyone knows him and his multiple personalities.
It's just me that's here tonight. I'm sorry. You're already disappointed.
We don't need the multiple personalities. Someday, maybe. But that's usually when Brent and I are bombing. Then we'll be calling you help.
So that will be happening any moment now.
That's right. So we might be calling in about 5 minutes.
No, this is great. We're glad to have you guys join us. I mean, was it the fact that, Brian left us and got this highfalutin job that maybe attracted you to do this? Or
I didn't realize it was part of the brand promise of being a player. So I gotta say, it's all upside from here, right?
We actually call it part of the brand credit, meaning we take credit for all good things.
Yeah.
and so you should. Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to do after the fact. So, we just fill vacuums. It's very easy.
Well, we couldn't believe that you two hadn't met before now.
I know.
We know a lot of the same people. Maybe they've deliberately kept us apart. I don't know.
I don't know, Jamie. I don't know what to say. I mean, clearly, there's some reason, but maybe now the streams have aligned.
Again, we are taking credit for another good thing.
Yeah. Indeed. Yes. You guys made it happen, and so many failed before you.
It's true. It's true.
Thank you. I know you would fit in.
Yeah. So, what we're going to do is, I believe Nicole will be joining us every third Thursday as our special, the spruce it up for us because, we're just not.
Most people find us pretty boring at this
right.
Right.
I wore a necklace to class it up today too.
It worked.
Yeah,
it really does.
We all feel better.
And Jamie, what are you like first Mondays or how's that?
First Monday.
First Thursdays.
Big Wednesdays.
Big Wednesdays. No, it's actually I'll just drop that in there. Although the back catalogue is not available. No, it's the first Thursday of every month. Yes.
See, we have you doing that because the way you say first Thursday just sounds really cool to me. So that's
no bother.
So why don't each of you guys just breathe with the people listening, which is Alan mostly. and tell people about what your history, your background a little bit. I mean, Brent and I know it, but probably actually Alan probably knows it too. So why don't you, Nicole? Why don't you start?
All right, I'll go first because I'm, it'd be terrible to go after Jamie. So, yeah, how did I get into this gig? Well, I have a past history as an analyst, which probably has a role to play. So I did it arguably at the wrong end of my career because I started out of college at a little analyst firm that ended up getting acquired by Gartner not long after I started there. So I did a good long time at Gartner, about 9 years. And actually most of that based out of the UK and France. And then I left because I decided that I wanted to try my hand at real jobs. So I did a bunch of stuff that was, strategy, marketing, customer facing stuff. And ultimately decided that I actually really liked being an analyst. So I came back. I joined Constellation about 1.5 years ago almost, which is pretty shocking. I know.
You become a pilot.
Was that? Oh yeah. You're trying to get my other creds in there too. One of the types of software that I very much appreciate is actually flight planning and tracking software. As a private pilot, so I come to this whole CRM thing with some pretty hard-held views based on practical experience and observing a whole lot of stuff, most of which doesn't work very well, and really wanting to take the good and improve it and help companies figure out how to address the big gaps that are, in some cases, all too evident in customer experience.
You fill the bill, I'll tell you that. I mean, let's put it this way. As many people know, analysts and vendors actually don't just communicate professionally. We all gossip a lot, right? So, and I'm basically talking about the gossip here, okay? I never professionally communicate. So, everyone loves you, Nicole. I will tell you, everyone thinks amazing as an analyst, great person. You're like a top of mind kind of person to people. Like you say, ask a question about it, and who do you think should? Nicole, definitely. And in fact, when we told some people in advance of you being a play in residence, one of them, I'm not kidding, I'm not going to tell you who though, literally clapped.
Yeah, follow the money on that one. No, I'm kidding. Thank you, Paul. That actually is really flattering to hear. It's lovely. It's I honestly can say part of what's cool about this whole area, everybody working in it, customers, executives, vendors, and the cohort here are folks who care about it and watch it and talk and write about it. It's a really good crowd of people. And I think there's a deep vein of passion around this because it's such an important subject. And I think there's a really interesting mix between the kind of touchy-feely part of this, because it is ultimately about relationships between people in any kind of context you want to describe. But there's a lot that's really about how you get the boundaries right on that. And there's a whole lot that's really interesting technology to make it work. And I think for me, one of the big things that I've come to add to my soapboxes that I like to hop back and forth between is that when the technology is really good in this stuff, you don't notice it. And that is actually a pretty high bar to meet in a lot of cases.
Amy, I just want to test and see if, are you hearing me okay? Still
yeah, I hear you though.
There's a little bit of an echo, but I mean, like 2 BrentLearys is better than 1. So I mean, it's absolutely fine for me.
It's double the trouble,
dude.
Wow.
You already get an A for your first course in player residency.
It was an independent study.
That's right. Like music appreciation. Would you like to hear some music? I'd appreciate that.
With corroborated results. There we go.
Listen, when I was a radical in college, I got an independent study literally in rioting. Not kidding.
Wow.
Sociology class.
So did you grade yourself since it was independent study?
No, I had a professor of sociology who was also our student advisor. So that worked. That was easy. So Jamie, you got about 200 years in this industry. So start talking, man.
Yeah, look, I started as a developer, in the industry, and worked for a little company in Scotland, and it seemed the perfect thing to do after being a failed musician. But I sort of went into it, and I really loved it. But I really loved solving customer problems. So I kind of moved away from being a relatively average developer to kind of getting more customer facing and solving, customers' big CX related, CRM related issues. So I remember working, for Scottish Power, British Telecom during the deregulations of the industry, when literally connecting more with customers was what was driving differentiation. And I always remember there was one leader at Scottish Power. David Jones, his name was, I think he was the CIO. And he made a statement that was a statement where I really got it. And that statement was, we can't make our electricity go faster than anyone else. We can't make our gas burn brighter than anyone else's. But if we treat our customers with respect, if we listen to their needs, we'll win. And I thought it was a beautiful thing to say, because it was the real essence of what CRM was about, that you have a product which is indistinguishable from anybody else's gas or electricity. It's utility. So if you put the emphasis on customer experience, you're going to win. So I kind of did that for a while, was a solution architect, was at Siebel Systems. Then I joined SAP, went over the same time as Mr. Stutz the first time around, back around 2006. I had a great time with SAP in total. With SAP, I was there about 10 years. And I've got a lot of admiration for the company, and a lot of admiration for people and friends that are still there. And then I joined Marketo to run European business.
When you were at SAP toward the end of it, what were you doing?
I just skipped over that because Liz Miller will drag me up about this. Liz Miller from Constellation. So I served for 3 years as the CMO of SAP Hybris, which was SAP CX. So I had an amazing time. I had an amazing team. And if they're listening, love you guys, because a lot of them are still there. So it was great. And then I went from that to then running Marketo and EMEA with Steve Lucas as CEO. And I don't know if Steve's watching. He should. Hi, Steve. But that was awesome. And now I'm working with UserTesting as Chief Growth Advisor, working with an amazing team there. Andy McMillan's assembled a terrific team. They're doing some really cool stuff. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think you're on the advisory board and chief advisor, both, right?
Yes, and I'm also working with Exactly, which is another Vista company, a great company. You know Exactly really well, Paul, and with Bloomreach as well, which is a ton of fun.
Well, we do have some subjects we got to get to today.
Yeah.
This is, by the way, Jamie, at the end of this one, you probably will have no friends left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm worried. Right?
You mentioned your time at SAP, and of course, there was some rather significant news that came out of that company this week, with going from a dual CEO model to just one CEO model. So once again, yeah. Well, it's not like they're the only ones that have done that. I mean, Salesforce did it a little earlier this year. I think, is Oracle back to that, or is it? I don't know what the current situation is. Yeah. So they're back to one now. So, was there any surprise amongst the folks here around the announcement with Jen Morgan stepping down, or?
You guys can start. I'll get in. Don't worry.
Yeah. Who's going first? I was super surprised, and I think there's a couple of things. If you can allow me to ramble for a little bit, because I've been trying to get my brain around this one, right? The dual model. I know that people have spoken about it in the context of Salesforce. I know they've spoken about it also in the context of Oracle, but these have been relatively recent things for these guys. SAP's done this many times. I went back to Henning, you know, together with Haskell. And then we had, obviously, Bill McDermott, Jim Hagen McNabb. This is not new territory. What is completely new is the fact that it's broken down after 6 months.
Yeah.
And it has broken down. And I don't want to speculate, because I think the thing we should be, first of all, acknowledging is that, you know, Jen Morgan had a stellar career at SAP. She should not be defined by the fact that, you know, people might look, you know, with eyes aghast, face aghast at the fact that she was there for 6 months as CEO. I find it incredibly curious, the timing. I find the reason about the COVID, you know, extremely strange. And I'll tell you why. Because that very same morning, right, I was reading an article in the Washington Post. Now, I kind of have a feed of different things. I'm not from Washington, you've probably guessed, and the accent kind of gives it away. But I was reading an article, right, in the Washington Post, and what it was saying was the countries that had the greatest response to COVID globally are all led by women. From New Zealand, Norway, Iceland, Germany, right? They're all led by women. And what makes them different in the response is that the response is very measured, it's very empathetic, and it's also, you know, it's extremely human. And then when they give very clear direction, and by the way, in Scotland we have an awesome women first minister as well. Her communication skills are absolutely first class. You're left in under no certain terms what she's asking you to do. But it's done with empathy, it's done with feeling, an acknowledgement that people, grandmothers, mothers, fathers, children are dying. And they actually call that out. So it's human. And the response has been brilliant. So I kind of felt really disappointed that SAP would kind of use COVID to say there's confusion, so we're moving to one leader. And then somewhat ironically, from what I'm reading in the press, you know, the leader that came forward as a gentleman, right? And I have nothing really more to add, but I just find it curious.
Well, I gotta say, I likewise was taken aback by the news. Certainly was not something I was anticipating. And I don't pretend to have any insider knowledge here, but I thought it was just out of left field is really what it felt like. And I've got to say, I likewise find it really disappointing. I think for me, it indicated that a lot of the things that I think many of us as SAP watchers had been hoping might be a really significant change of direction for the company are at this point very unlikely to happen. And I think that is not only a shame and a waste of some real talent, but frankly, a huge missed opportunity. And I'm sure we'll get mail on this one. But, you know, I really think it's too bad. And I'm hoping that what we see in the coming weeks allays some of our, or at least my concerns here. But, you know, this is a real shame. I think it was interesting and incredibly powerful to have someone like Jen Morgan with her background, with her degree of respect and experience in that position. And, you know, I got to say, like, we suffer from the small n problem, right? There are really not very many women in those roles, period, especially in the level and at the type of organization that Jen was at. And I have no doubt that she will go on to do amazing things because, you know,
yeah,
obviously, right? But I think it's a real shame because she had parts of the portfolio that were, in my view, critical to the way that business is developing. I think particularly, and going back to your point, Jamie, which was incredibly well made about the irony of this change and the timing and the purported justification of it. If anything has become painfully obvious during this whole upheaval, it is that if you don't really understand and appreciate what's going on with your customers right now, you're screwed. Like, you're just not going to do well. And you might be able to limp along for a while, but you're certainly not going to thrive at the other end of this thing. And to me, this speaks to a larger set of issues. Business is more than just internal operations. Business is very much about the operations that directly impact the way that they interact with their customers. And that is not limited to single departments and single types of interactions, right? It is the entirety of how you operate. I was laughing, you guys will appreciate this because this was a conversation I was having with Esteban the other day. Paul, this is near and dear to your heart. Like, okay, if we're in a post-CRM world, we got to come up with another name for it. What is it? And my mind immediately went back to the Clue movie, Cluedo, Jamie, if you need me to translate that one. Yes. And it's Mr. Green. What do? Business. What kind of business? Just business. That's to me what it is. Like, it's just business. This is business operations. It just so happens that there's a big chunk of it that's customer facing and customer related, right? And yet this seems to be the part that most businesses still can't pull together really effectively. There are pieces of greatness and there are pockets of great practice, but it's still totally inconsistent, even in the businesses that we tend to point to as being really good examples. So, and if any organization had the portfolio and the technical skill and the massive install base to really come at this from a different perspective, it's SAP.
It is.
But are we actually going to see that happen? To be continued.
Well, look, so I agree with both of you, and even then some. SAP is a company, from my standpoint, I've known them since, I've known Jamie. I've known SAP even longer than I knew Jamie, which is like older than I actually am. So there's so much brilliance that sits at that company, and they have so much capability in terms of their opportunity to build the things that need to be built. And they're one of the one or two companies, at least in the world that we inhabit, that can really make a claim of integration of the front and the back and the full spectrum end to end. And they even had, finally, after years, the messaging to go with it at the global level, intelligent enterprise, which is the only ones who could even say that and then do it. And they pivoted, even while Bill McDermott was still there, toward customer facing and publicly stated in 2018 that this would be the way the company was going to go. And then they brought in Bob and Esteban to fix all of that and make it work. And then they pulled this. Aside from my just absolute beyond respect, for Jen Morgan, who I think is just brilliant and pretty much universally is thought of that way. I don't know Christian Klein. Most of the people say he's much quieter than she is and much more reticent to speak than she is. But and I've never met him. I've met her a few times. But he's more very operational. But basically, the problem with this, aside from the fact that if you had to pick one, you made the wrong choice to begin with. And I'm sorry, nothing against Christian Klein. It's just Jen Morgan is brilliant and respected in the world, not just in the industry. So, that said, the frightening thing is SAP steps on its own foot again. And it keeps doing this over and over and over.
This has been your even when I used to present to you, Paul, and and myself and Volker would kind of roll up and we'd take you through labs and we'd show you this amazing innovation. Remember all those years, and you would always come back and say to us, "Look, guys, what you're doing is amazing." I mean, remember Nayaki and things like that, and the drones flying around the office. Right. And it nearly killed you, but it was good. It was fun.
True story.
But I mean, we had all this amazing innovation, and there is, and by the way, it's still there. But the thing you always used to say was, but you keep shooting yourself in the foot. Not you, but the organization. Yeah. And look, and there's no disrespect to anyone in kind of what we're saying. I mean, there are terrific female leaders there still. I mean, I think Adair Fox-Martin should really lean on Adair. Her empathy, her connection with customers is phenomenal. Let's hope none of that gets lost. But yeah, obviously Jen's a loss to the business. But I mean, I'm really intrigued to see where she will pop up because I think it's super interesting.
I guess all in all, it's just, this is a repeat of things that happen again and again with the company, and that's what bothers me. I love the company. I've utterly loved that company for years, and I've always seen what they could do. And and like one of the bright lights when you were CMO, SAP Hybris was starting to really show some explosive growth, and the message was good, and it was human in the approach it took, and the tech was great. And then when you were gone, everything was pretty much sliced out and tanked and taken away. And now, I still have a great deal of faith in Esteban and Bob fixing what's there, because the team there, Margot and all the others, on the communication side and the product side teams are great. I mean, they still are great. That didn't change overnight, but it's just, I mean, how out of sync with the world can you possibly be more than this? Even if you're going to do this, wait, right? Don't do it now. This is literally the wrong time to do it, no matter what you're thinking. Whether you wanted to do this exact move, which I disagree with, but I have nothing to say. I could disagree with it all day. It already happened, so it doesn't really matter. But but on the other hand, why do you do it right in the middle of a crisis at this magnitude, where all you do is create uncertainty around your own company, which is the last thing you want to do. The last thing you want. SAP was doing good things during the crisis. They did a number of applications, which I wrote about, because what made them interesting is they weren't doing the front end 50. I mean, they were doing this too, but they weren't doing the 50, 60, 80 million PPEs, which you laud companies for doing. But they actually had been building supply chain apps that they were giving away to make sure the supply chain stayed strong, right? And that's vital. And they were doing vital, important things. And then basically, I didn't say that SAP just shot itself in the foot. I actually had a slightly different take on it. I said first they put their foot in their mouth, then they shot themselves in the foot.
Well, you're right. The thing they did with Ariba, I thought was great, to open up, the Ariba side of the business, to make it free, to keep the supply chain moving, and where there was things like excess in the supply chain and get it distributed. I mean, that was great. The stuff they did with Qualtrics that I read about was really cool as well, about employee mental health, making sure people were checking in and opening that up. I thought that was beautiful as well. So to come to this point, and I think the thing that gets me as someone that, for years has really focused on things like communication, I think for the communication to come out and for the message to be shrouded around COVID, it just doesn't feel right.
It invites suspicion, doesn't it? It invites cynicism, in fact, as well, which is unfortunate.
You're going to have to, I'll say this, look, it's done. And it could be that Christian Klein turned out to be a very good CEO. I have no judgment on it. I don't know the man. I don't know what his I assume he's capable of being a good CEO because he was a co-CEO. So. But that said, SAP has to manage this thing a hell of a lot better than they're doing.
Well, the guy's been COO, right? He's got a great team. He's actually got a genuinely great team around him. I think Luka Mukic and the extension of Luka's contract is fantastic as well, for business continuity. I know he's very well liked as well by customers. So I think that's all good. So I think there's every possibility that it will be successful, because SAP is a machine. It is genuinely a very well-run machine, but it occasionally does things that throw you and it off kilter.
Yeah, like occasionally, like every other week. Right? So look, one thing I'm very happy about is that Bob and Esteban are still there. Right? So I'm counting on them to do what I hope they'll do, because if Bob and Esteban pull off what they've got to, then the customer wants it or not, because what they're doing is very powerful. And so SAP has the ability to tie that to intelligent enterprise. So if they're smart enough, they'll do that, and this thing will fade away, and it'll just be Jen Morgan will be a genius somewhere else, and they'll regret that she's gone. And then Christian Klein hopefully will be a very good CEO. And I will hold out the promise that I will hope that he will. That's all I can possibly say.
All right, I've been quiet because I don't know if I have a lot of echo going on. So
It's
you
not too
guys-
bad, Brent.
yeah, I'll just say real quick, and of course it just starts right up. The echo is just killing me here. I didn't know Jen. I never talked to her, never met her, but all I heard was good things about her, and it was really ironic based on the last event we went to was AXS, and I moderated a panel on diversity and the shortcomings of it, and it was represented extremely well by Jen Vandy Zandy, who was SAP CX editor-in-chief, and she was her and Kate Bradley Chernus,
Victoria's
KBC. Yeah. I mean, they were awesome, and they were talking facts and figures and what has changed and what hasn't changed, what needs to change and who needs to be involved in that change. And the fact that SAP then changed the CEO after something like that just doesn't really feel that great. Let's put it like that. I'll just leave it at that. All right. So before we jump into the winners, Watchlist Winners segment, we're going to do something that's just, the whole country is just going crazy over. Protect identity, not stupidity.
AKA pins.
And this week, we're going to let one of our new Playa in Residence program members talk about the one that she has. So we made sure to scrub, names, URLs, anything else, because last week I did it, and apparently Alan, good old Alan, figured out who it was by doing a Google search on the title. So I'm popping this one up for Nicole to walk us through why we should protect this person's identity, but talk about the stupidity in this.
Yeah, so I gotta say, first of all, I'm pleased to say that I am very well aware that MVNO means Mobile Virtual Network Operator. And that is no doubt because I worked for a couple of companies that, among other things, do networking stuff, like Fujitsu and Cisco. But I got these messages, as you can see, last year, so not quite a year ago. And I was really astonished because it was a guy who has like 30 or 40 shared connections with me. And I got his invitation on LinkedIn, and, lesson to me, be more selective in which invitations I accept. But so I accepted, and then I get these messages. And I honestly, I got the first one, and I had to laugh. I think I literally laughed out loud because I thought it was just completely inane. I mean, what part of my job title, VP and principal analyst, or my employer, Constellation Research, makes you think that this is at all a remote area of interest for me? Like, do I really want to launch my own mobile virtual network operator? I'm going to go with there's a very small chance that the answer is yes. I would have responded differently if he had even worded this in such a way to say, hey, this might sound off the wall, but have you ever considered launching your own MVNO? I mean, that might have been enough of an odd opportunity to send a message back, but I ignored it. And then he comes back, and I was like, really? I mean, I actually would have no qualms about outing this person by name, because I think this is such a shamefully stupid approach. And it's one of those things that customer experience is like, for Christ's sake, and forgive me for, going down that line, but come on, people. A fool with a tool is still a fool, right? Like, we're trying to come up with better ways of interacting and engaging with people. But if you're going to insist on screwing up, you still can. And you still can pretty easily, And I'm astonished that, like, we've basically made it easier and more programmatic and a lot faster for people to do really stupid shit on a larger scale.
Don't hold back, Nicole. Tell us how you really feel.
Sorry. I get to feel a little bit passionately about that stuff.
I got to remember a tool with a fool, or no, a fool with a tool.
A fool with a tool.
Tool is still a fool.
Hey, look.
I didn't know we were playing this game, but I'm all in because look, you know, I've got a little bit more time on my hands as well. I tend to find that I respond, I engage them in a conversation which gets them tied up in knots, which is good fun.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is. It is.
Although on the happy hour yesterday, we were criticized for that by Walter Winchell.
Well, Walter Winchell.
That's what I'm calling Alan. Right?
That one caught me off guard.
So, because he was saying, well, it's not. He said it's not. It might be a little mean. It's not really your corporate brand, which was a shock to Brent and I because we had no idea
we didn't know we had a corporate brand, so we were like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Only a Jets fan would come up with something like that. You know?
We realized, of course, at that point, given that we don't have a corporate brand, it's not mean. So
yeah,
we can keep doing it.
But as long, I think the goal here is not to out the individual.
No,
it's to out the stupidity and hopefully change the behavior. That's all. And
on the other hand, though, if you get 2 follow-ups after that, we'll out the individual.
Okay, I think that's I think that is absolutely a good one. On the follow-up thing, though, and this was, I should save this one in my back pocket, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. I got another, like emails coming to me about people wanting to, and it would be one thing if it were briefing me on what they do, but it's actually using those words, but really to try to sell me what they're doing. So again, like no effort made to understand what my actual job role or area of responsibility is, or what my company actually does as a business, right? Mm-hmm. It's all public. Yeah. It's not that hard to figure it out, folks, right? But my favorite was after, it was like the 4th or 5th email in the thread, and the guy says, "This is going to be the last time that I contact you," and it was like, thank goodness.
Well, is that supposed to be a threat? I mean,
yeah.
Oh well.
There's a weird one that's come up, and I'm pretty sure it's not just me that's been targeted with this, right? But you know the one that's supposed to be amusing. And it says you haven't responded to my email. So you've either fallen down a big hole, blah, blah, blah. And number 2, you have another multiple choice question, or 3, you're just not interested. Those ones as well, because they're bonkers. And I think somebody's read Engage with Humor, and I'm thinking, but this is not funny. Right. You know.
When I get, usually though, you get the first email. Then the second one's like 24 hours later, you haven't responded to my email. As soon as that happens, I always send a message back saying, have you ever considered the fact that I didn't respond to your emails because I didn't want to? And I just leave it at that.
That, or get me out of your automated drip campaign, because I don't want your automated mail follow-ups.
No.
Because that's all it is. All right. We're going to have more of these as time goes on. This is going to be a regular segment.
And we will take them from guests too, who will get their moment on the show to talk about them.
Right. So Alan, just, or Walter, is that his name? Walter. Be ready for that, Walter. All right. So before our guest comes on, we have to do the Watchlist Winners segment because, you got to talk about it before our guest comes on and we talk about it with her. And she's already listening. Whoa. She just popped up. She's in the green room. So why don't you talk about why Microsoft was one of this year's Watchlist winners? So
before that, Dina, just eat some of the donuts while you're in the green room. So Microsoft's the last of the winners with distinction. And then next week will be Zoho, for example, which we'll get to the regular winners. So there were only 3. We heard from the other two, about the other 2 and from the other 2, Thunderhead and Salesforce last week. Microsoft wins in part for reasons that were similar to Salesforce and a couple of very different reasons too. I mean, the interesting thing with Microsoft is they're Microsoft and they're going to have an impact regardless of anything. No matter what, Microsoft's a $100 billion company that literally dominates a large number of segments of business in this world. And, you look at things like Windows or Office, things like that, those run the show and there's no competition really. I mean, if you even look on the Mac, people use Office for the Mac. And then every complaint about Windows, if you're talking to them 10 months later and say, what are you using now? They say Windows, right? So they own that. And that's impact at a fundamental level. But, if you're looking at it from the standpoint of Microsoft Dynamics, which is, their focus around business applications primarily, you can say, well, they're competitive there. But really the overarching company in combination with that makes them an incredibly powerful company with not only impact from last year, but impact for the next 3 years to come. So, for example, if you think about when Satya took over from Steve Ballmer, I almost said Steve Jobs. When he took over from Steve Ballmer, he built out a vision, and it was a unique vision for the company. It was Microsoft wants to be a mission-critical part of all 21st century business infrastructure. Now, the implication of that is hardware, software, services, you name it. And what have they done since that time? They've taken all their, let's say, discrete communications, the communications technologies like, now Microsoft Teams, Skype, well, I'm not going to go through them. There are 13 of them, let's just say that. And they've integrated it into a unified communications hub that they've then built around Office 360, or what are they calling it now? It's not Office 365 now. There's a new name. I can't remember what it is. Office 3, whatever. Office, right?
Microsoft 365.
Microsoft 365. Thank you. They've that was pretty good. Zip in, zip out. They built it around that. So that becomes Microsoft 365 becomes the unified communications hub as well as the productivity suite, but it also integrates a lot more, and all of that has Azure as the infrastructure as a service, as the web infrastructure, that the technology infrastructure that they're using to actually combine and integrate all of the capabilities they have to put into the business world. So you look at Dynamics, for example. From a mission vision standpoint, Dynamics CRM in particular, but Dynamics has its own mission and vision. I told you what I found to be both the mission and the vision statement of Microsoft was mission critical part of all business infrastructure of the 21st century. But I'll read you the Microsoft Dynamics CRM vision statement. Microsoft enables a world where business can continuously improve experiences throughout the entire customer journey, which is perfect for when you're dealing with engagement and experience, right? It's how you think about it, how you do it, and the kind of world you want to build is that kind of integrated look at not only customers, but at what customers are doing in real time, how you respond to them, how to make sure that you're proactive with them, how to, in fact, be prescriptive with them, right? And to that end, they saw their mission as to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more, which is actually probably more of a vision than their vision statement is, right? But at the same time, it basically says to get to the point where we're empowering, where we're building that kind of integrated infrastructure and superstructure to talk to the customers, to engage with them and continually interact and respond. Each of you as an individual has to have the tools and capabilities and services you need to do that. Now, those are great statements to make. The question becomes, do you have the technology? Do you have the capabilities to actually execute against that statement? Do you have the strategy, the programs, and technologies to do that? They do. Now, if this was years ago, would I say, let's say 7-8 years ago, would I say Dynamics CRM competes out there? No. Now, yeah, absolutely. Not does it compete out there. It plays big time. I mean, so for example, you look at it at two levels. Level one is overall. They had a problem for a while with the marketing automation side of a fully integrated CRM suite. They partnered with Adobe, and at the high end, at the enterprise level, they now have, and even in the mid-market to some extent, they have Adobe's Experience Cloud to be their capability when it comes to marketing. And their partnership with Adobe is brilliant. I call it, as many of you know, the GARP. And a lot of you, I'm sure, remember The World According to GARP. If you do, I'll put it this way. The question is, do you remember the movie or do you remember the book, right? Or both? If you remember both or the book, you're older than if you just remember the movie. And I won't say anymore. GARP for me, though, was the Get a Room partnership because it was so intimate, so tight. The relationship between Adobe and Microsoft so strong that they're working with the two companies are working together literally at the level of the engineers talking about, Azure as the infrastructure and Adobe technologies combined tightly with Microsoft at a level that I honestly have never seen before. At the level of the product, right? Meaning, so that gave them the full suite, right? The level of the product, you're seeing stuff which we'll be talking with Dina about Dina in just a couple of minutes. You're seeing the product actually just growing at leaps and bounds. On the one hand, they now have Power Platform. Look, 5 years ago, they didn't even have a platform. They had what they were calling what they could do with their CRM platform. They're calling it, I think, XRM or XRP or something like that. And it wasn't a real platform at all. But now, Power Platform is a real platform. Power Apps are what we call citizen apps, which means you can build out your own apps as a business user, right? And actually build things that capably work for your business. And Dynamic CRM itself, the core technology pieces, are being built at a level that are brilliant. So, like, for example, one piece which appealed to me, I think the first time I saw it, I want to say it was 2018, and Dina will remember because she's the one who showed it to me. I saw with the dynamic sales. I saw their sales assistant, which is the AI for sales, and it was absolutely brilliantly conceived. Why? Because it was not only was it cool, which AI generally is, but it was absolutely useful. I guess that's the best way to put it. It was useful. So what you had with Microsoft, and they've continually been building in the technologies that are meaningful to customers. The other reason that Microsoft gets with distinction, and the final one I'll go into, is probably another 30, but given that
let's go one.
talkative people always take away all my time. So the other reason is due to their philanthropy. They don't talk about that much, but they do $1.6 billion worth of philanthropy a year. And that's grants, that's services they provide, that software they give. They have one set right now, which is being utilized in the midst of this crisis. This is their AI, AI for good, they call it. And there's AI for culture, there's AI for earth, AI for health services. They're using AI for health services in the midst of the crisis. And their AI is being applied to philanthropic efforts to save and improve the world. And they do that at a scale that even Salesforce doesn't do, which is astounding given how much Salesforce does. But that's another reason why you win with distinction, because they take their responsibility as let's call it a corporate citizen or a citizen corporation, seriously. And not as seriously to the point where they're willing to actually put a significant percent, although for them that would be 1.6% of their revenue, but it's a significant piece of dollars and cents and effort into making the world a better place, and it fulfills the mission and the vision in the watch list. So,
all right,
those are the reasons. And Dina can justify all this, and she's super cool.
And there she is right now.
Speaking of super cool,
Hey, Dina.
Welcome.
I didn't even need to come on here, Paul. Hey.
don't worry, you know me. I can go for another hour and a half. So, hey, Dina, listen, before we get into the conversation, tell people all about yourself, because I'm going to tell them one thing before we even start. You are literally probably one of the coolest, let's say, dinner and drinking companions I've ever had. You and Jen.
That's high praise.
That is seriously high praise.
Wow, I'm surprised to be able to live up to that statement.
No, it's hard, but you do. Amazing. Thank you.
Well, growing up in an Italian family, you do come with those roots. So I think that it just comes with the heritage.
So fill us
in. So I run product marketing for the Dynamics 365 customer engagement portfolio. And, I've been doing this for a few years now, and I sit between engineering as well as our sales organization. So we think about, how do we bring these products to market? How do we make them extremely successful? So it makes my job quite fun and challenging. Every day is a little bit different. There's never a dull moment. Let's just say that.
Well, let me ask you, this is a question I've seen you do this, but I'm really curious as to how you think about it. you kind of you're in a funny position, really. You don't just do product marketing. I mean, you do a lot more than that when I watch what you do every day, because you're actually doing a lot of functionally product management too. And you're also kind of thinking through a significant number of, let's say, market aligned ideas and where the product and the marketing around it, but also the product itself needs to go. So, which is something we don't hear much about. So take us through how you think about that. I mean, because to me, that's...
Yeah. And every product that is in this part of the portfolio does have a little bit different of a lifestyle, it's at a different stage. And so it allows me to kind of flex and kind of learn day in and day out in terms of, where can I apply my strengths and how can I provide the most value. But part of it is just working across, I'm very fortunate to work across a great group of engineering leaders as well. And they involve product marketing quite early. So as part of defining, where we're heading with the roadmap and the go-to-market, we have a huge opportunity to kind of not just think upstream and about opportunity, but the reality of what customers need. And so my background coming from the field in the U.S. market has been able to bring a lot of that reality to some of the plans that we're thinking about, the models, the go-to-market, what features and functionalities are going to resonate best with customers. And so I love bringing the first-hand experience, regardless of the segment or industry, into the conversation.
Hey, Dina, let me introduce you to our new players in residence. You already know Nicole. I always like to throw the L in there. But you already know Nicole.
Yes.
Do you know Jamie Anderson too? Have you ever met Jamie before?
Not officially.
This is why this show is here, to bring good folks together.
Wow.
And then to let them ask questions, hard hitting kind of questions to you. So I need a player in residence to start asking Dina some questions.
All right, that's a roast. Is this a roast? I didn't know I signed up for that.
No.
We didn't tell you. That's why we didn't tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to pick up on something Paul said, Dina, because I think this is actually a really cool part of what you do, but also how the portfolio is evolving at Microsoft. And I'm really curious, talk a little bit more about what you are doing on the future looking side, how you see the portfolio evolving, or what you're really kind of looking at and thinking about. And I know it's kind of tough. You can't say too much, but what can you share with us? What are the big things that are on your mind, at least, that you're exploring?
Yeah, I think that there's kind of two ways to split this. I think that there's the here and now, and how we're thinking about how our current set of technology can help companies right now, and kind of respond to the current environment. And so that's really near and dear and top of mind right now. It's not about selling more. It's about making sure that customers are getting the most value out of what they already have. So for me, it's about how do businesses stay open right now? How are they responding to change? How are they meeting the needs of their customers? And how are they staying connected to customers? And so what's near and dear right now is the capabilities that can help to enable more of that remote capability provided by technology, but more for the companies and their end users. And so whether that's digital selling, or whether that is around thinking about 24/7 service, that's really important and top of mind for us. And so as I think about future roadmap, and things that we're planning towards, is how can we make sure that our products are providing the most value so that people can stay, or sellers can stay productive in the sense of working opportunity, but how can they cue in to some of the technology to understand that hey, customers that I have a relationship with are actually impacted by COVID, and how can I bring some of that insight into the conversation to really be more meaningful and purposeful in my dialogue with them, right? Or how can I think a little bit differently about maybe plan my conversation differently, or how can sales managers coach, some of their sellers to have more of that empathy day in and day out. And so as we think about some of our roadmap feature sets that are coming out, I think that's going to be really critical for us because again, every industry, every geography is at a different state and time in terms of how they're dealing with, crisis, or whether they're going to be in a restart and a restate phase. And so that's going to be important for our roadmap as well as we think about that. Of course, we have some very exciting things that I'm going to be excited to share with all of you soon about in terms of where we're going. But I think this year has been remarkable with us making a huge investment in our AI and our insights portfolio. And just that alone can help companies to think smarter about their investments. So using AI, not for the sake of AI, but for the sake of driving some better bottom line costs, business continuity, reshaping their business models. And so we're going to be investing in a lot more of tech around that to help companies to be a data first organization.
It's kind of an interesting opportunity to sort of, as you say, not look so much at what tools, but how effectively you're using them. And, it's a great time to experiment. And it's also a really important time to start getting that right in a way that I think a lot of companies haven't necessarily put the same investment into doing until they've had to, right?
That's right. And this right now is giving us really an opportunity, I think, to really help, our customers right now to find, the best way to use technology as an enabler to really help them right now. And it's all about them. And, being able to keep their lights on, right, and serve customers and their end users in time of need.
One other question. Oh, Jamie, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just had a little kind of maybe more of a human kind of question in all of this as well. But, when you think about the huge customer base that you guys have globally, everyone in some way, shape or form right now is impacted, by COVID. What's the number one concern that Microsoft is hearing back from its customers right now? What kind of support are they looking for from Microsoft? What can Microsoft do for them?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there are customers across every, industry that we're supporting right now. And some of the things that, I hear about on a daily basis, and the stories that are starting to really resonate with me, as you think about companies like American Red Cross in Australia, really needing to be there to call down on those citizens that are in quarantine, right? And they call upon us to help to streamline activities and also realize that volunteers can't all be in the same location. And so those kind of things are really, critical. Or as you think about, patients I should say companies like Arla over in Denmark who have manufacturing plants, right? And they need to get supply out because that's producing food. And that's going to be, going in terms of, supply chain and out to the grocery markets and whatnot. But unfortunately, on the front line and in the manufacturing plant, they have to kind of pull back on their staff to, as part of, distancing standards. And so they're using like mixed reality as a way to enable those people on the front lines that might not be the best, might not be the experts, but to be able to be dialed in remotely from the experts in the back office. And so some of those things, we are starting to really see companies really lean on Microsoft to say, what can I get up and running in a matter of days? And let's break down, we have an opportunity to break down that I think that perception that CRM deployments actually take 12 months. And so we're actually seeing that as a reality. And then customers see that as obviously a huge value to Microsoft because we can help them mobilize around the current now.
Cool. Thank you.
So
I was just going to ask one real quick one. Not only is she really cool to have dinner and drink with, but she's also cool to have a conversation by fireside, which is the last time we talked at the CCE. But last year at all the conferences I went to, Microsoft was really the only one that talked about mixed reality. And we had a conversation about that by fireside too. Given what's going on, what impact do you think this current pandemic, the crisis, has on adoption of mixed reality? Because it seems like to me, there's going to be a huge opportunity to incorporate mixed reality into many different ways for engagement. Do you see this as something that will accelerate that or change it in any way? Or?
Yeah, I absolutely do. So I think since we spoke, Brett, as well, I now have some additional responsibilities with some of those mixed reality products within the portfolio because they make sense in terms of, as you think about scenarios that are helping to solve in different lines of businesses. And so actually we have, remote assist, which I was just mentioning and talking about remote assist as an ability to go and remote in using an expert, with a colleague on the front line. And, there's some remarkable ways that that's coming to life. We recently announced a few weeks ago an offer for companies in terms of 6 months free to help them get up and running and to kind of think about using this technology today to keep their businesses going. Again, I love it because I installed it in 2 minutes. I was up and running and I was thinking, oh my gosh, the use case for this, I need to get it like on my parents', mobile phone so that I can do like arrows into the computers and tell them where the print button is. But again, a myriad of use cases, collaboration use cases around remote assist. As we think about like digital selling, right? Like at what point are we going to start to see field sellers, out there? Back again. And so as you think about things like product visualize as an ability to show large form types of products, through your, mobile devices and applications, I think that some of these products are going to be way more prevalent. And the good thing is that we were already on the cusp of this innovation and we were making it a reality. And now I feel like it's really just been embraced and it's going to definitely accelerate with some of those, again, the ability to keep supply chain up and running, the ability to improve fixed-time rate, in terms of service calls, as well as you think about being able to show and showcase, digital products in terms of 2D and 3D annotations and those types of things.
I just got to say, Dina, family edition of Remote Assist, I think you've got a ready market for it right now. I would be a taker for sure.
Yeah.
So I actually, one more question. So, there's a lot, the discussion around empathy has been kind of a big deal. Prior to all of this, it was beginning, right? It was actually beginning from two standpoints. Beginning from humanization on the one side, but also beginning from the standpoint of empathy-enabled technology, right? Which was a little odd, but Pega, right? Had, was it empathy, what do they call it?
It was empathy assistant.
Empathy assistant, right? And it was kind of an AI, which is a very distracting idea. I mean, I know where they're coming from on empathy, and they actually have a pretty decent idea of actual empathy, but I'm not sure how you enable that with technology particularly.
It's hard enough with people. I just got to say.
Well, that's kind of the point, right? So, but also there's a lot of confusion as to what the hell empathy is and the difference between, say, an individual who is being empathetic and a business empathy, which are different, right? So how do you look at that? Because that discussion, as abstract as it may sound, is actually crucial, right? Because if you don't define it the right way, you don't think about it the right way, you're going to do the wrong things, as we prove with our protect the
identity, not the stupidity
segment. But how do you actually think about that? Because Microsoft is actually pretty much an empathetic company, but pretty much.
Yeah.
So how do you think?
We certainly are. Yep, we certainly are. And I would say more so right now than ever, like we are starting to think more about how do we bring that into like the core tenets of, our products and what we're investing in. Because it's one thing to, have initiatives around this or to have a mission statement around this, but it's another thing to like actually design tech around that purpose. And I actually think that we've made some great headways. I mean, if you think about it, like our accessibility standards, and those are built into the products that are developed by our engineering team. We have the same marketing standard for anything that we're putting out into the market, in terms of messaging and content. And so as you think about that, like, to me, it actually impacts the human side of things. And if you pause and think about this, that at that point of where you're briefing a creative agency or whether you're designing the product. And so it is something that I feel like has definitely worked its way through our company on multiple levels. As you start to think about empathy in terms of selling, I mentioned that one, but even service, the workforce today that you're hiring for to be in those, service, 24/7 type of service capacity type roles. As you think about some of your coworkers that are going to be a bot, right? How do you think about empathy? How can your bots provide a level of empathy as well? And so all of this is, right, you have to think about all of this in context of it together. So I guess I'm not giving you a specific point of view, but I think it's actually something that we have to be like, ingrained as we think about, again, product design, marketing, and then the cultural aspect in terms of change management.
It's going to be interesting to see how it actually all turns out when it comes to the actual product and service.
Well, Paul and Brent, when we speak next, we're going to talk empathy, right? I mean, it's a whole show. It's a big area. Personally, it's something I'm heavily invested in as a topic, right? And have been for a number of years, the whole side of emotional marketing, things like that. Mm-hmm. Although, Nicole, tell us I'm not a marketer, okay? That's just one. But seriously, I do think that it's something that warrants a much bigger discussion, because I thought it's the whole essence. Another thing is, I mean, recently we've had all this kind of purpose-driven marketing stuff thrown at us. Purpose-driven marketing, we're a purpose-driven company. I'm not buying it in a lot of cases.
Thank you.
Suitable ones. There are very few suitable ones. We've got one on the call, Microsoft, I think, absolutely. But there are a lot where it's kind of virtue signaling. It is not real. And I think when it's real, it matters. So we should discuss that.
Although I will say, on behalf of all the bots everywhere, some of these bots have way more empathy than actual human beings do.
That's a frightening thought, but it's true.
Some of them do, yes.
Yeah, well, none is better than most humans.
And we will also remember, a fool with a tool is much more dangerous than a fool without one. So we'll keep that in mind.
Reputation. That's not a bad variation on the theme.
Yeah.
Wait, better, faster, shittier? Is that where we're going with that one?
That's wow, you're a genius, man. Better, faster, shittier.
Or in Glasgow, we would just say a fool with a tool is just a tool. Right?
That's
like
like
that.
5 variations in this one night.
I know. We better end it now before we just get way too silly on this. But Dina, thanks for joining us. This has been really fun. It's always fun talking with you. Next time, I would prefer a fireside, but that might take a little longer to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. We can still plan for that. I have some fireplaces around here. I'm sure you have some at your home as well. So we can work that in.
Maybe on the bottle of wine that you're going to have with the fireside chat, and you can each have, like you can pour the glass.
I'm going to have the finest cherry Coke Zero I can get.
So. And the worst the worst Coke, orange vanilla.
Yeah, stay away from the orange vanilla.
Yeah,
Brent, sounds painful.
You guys ought to join the happy hours. You really need to come on.
That's right.
Being able to give you priority to get into a happy hour.
Well, you're a player in residence now.
Right.
You get all the privileges.
VIP ropes are there for you. We get you past the bouncers. That's not a problem.
Nice.
Not a problem.
All right.
All right.
So this went long, but that's because there was a lot of good stuff. It was a good conversation.
And plus, it go long. So it's like,
yeah.
Well,
kind of hard not to go long. Anyway, so this has been great. Check us tomorrow with CRM Playaz Sports. Excuse the intrusion.
That's right.
I always got to make sure I get that right, because it could be
3 p.m.
Yeah, that's 3 p.m. Find out about that picture with the robots in a press conference. I can't wait to talk about that.
Professional football league.
Yeah, but it's the other football. Let's get that straight. Anyway,
thanks for our players in residence. You'll be seeing them on episodes coming near you. So, in the meantime, I'm BrentLeary.
I'm Paul Greenberg. Come on, players in residence.
I'm Nicole France.
And I'm Jamie Anderson.
Nice. And for Dina Apostolou, who's muted, we'll see y'all later.
Later.
Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Bye, everyone.
Bye.